Hello citizens, and welcome back. Many of us were watching when CAG first showed us distribution centers. The promise was grand as usual. New, massive locations featuring not only ground structures but also expansive underground tunnels. Many new missions at launch and more to come later. From small solo missions to raid missions for groups, distribution centers had a lot going for them and they showed great promise. But then, nothing happened. In this video, I want to explore the current state of distribution centers, why they were mostly abandoned, how can CAG fix this, and the strange trend of abandoning features after release. Let's start by talking about what distribution centers are. They were originally added to provide a middle location between landing zones and outposts. They're scattered all over Stanton and have a mostly uniform style, as you will see in the footage from this video. Distribution centers can be owned by different corporations, or even the UEE military. These different owners and operators were supposed to get differently branded interiors for the locations, but we never quite got that. The more important part is that distribution centers were supposed to provide a more static mission location, and also add a place for players to interact with minor factions in Stanton. They offered a variety of missions, ranging from deliveries to and from, hauling, deliveries within the distribution center itself, investigation, and even combat missions. And of course, all of these distribution centers offered some looting opportunities that were supposed to facilitate the raid gameplay. The interesting part of the concept was that CIG wanted to work with reputation with the owning faction to restrict player access to certain areas, and to make players interact with the content in the distribution centers by offering mission givers and mission locations. They also wanted to add trading opportunities for commodities and shops for items from the owning faction, which may not be available elsewhere. I was originally a bit skeptical about the idea of distribution centers, but seeing them in game was a very cool experience. I was very happy about having a new location for missions, and finally my favorite investigation missions made a partial comeback, with the new variation being introduced with distribution centers. But despite all of this, when you went to the distribution center for any reason, you would realize that it's basically this massive empty location. Yes, there is a building and hangars and the underground and some outbuildings, but that was really it. There wasn't any substance. Maybe my expectations were too high, but with the way CAG originally presented distribution centers, I expected them to have more life, to have more reasons to go there. The main disappointment was that CAG never put any kind of trading or shop into distribution centers, or really any kind of content that would make you go back there after you got bored of the same 3 missions they offered. So, what's the current state of distribution centers in 4.3? Well, in short, they are mostly forgotten. The only reason to go to one is if a hauling contract takes you there, and even then you just land in the hangar, move your cargo, and leave. But full disclosure, I have been told that the combat missions still exist too, but I didn't see any. But that might be because I don't have enough mercenary reputation. I suppose you could also go and raid distribution centers, but why do that when CAG have introduced the Stormbreaker facilities and the Onyx facilities, which have way more and way better loot that you can get for way less effort? Some of you are going to be asking, how did this happen? Well, first of all, with the year of playability and monthly content, I don't think there have been enough resources to put more effort into distribution centers. We do still have at least 2 more patches left in the year, so there is some hope, but I wouldn't be holding my breath. The second reason is the mission system refactor. The old mission system and many missions it contained weren't compatible with server meshing. So as you might have noticed, many missions have been gone for a very long time. And this includes every distribution center mission. And while the refactor is being actively worked on, we're still a long way away from having all the original missions converted and available. Even delivery missions, which I always considered to be the absolute basic mission type, are still not converted. So I think it's going to take months for distribution centers to have the missions offering we saw before the refactor, let alone new missions. However, there is some hope. In one of the upcoming patches, we might see the mission pickup on location feature, which allows players to discover missions when they arrive to a location, which is something that could potentially be used for localized distribution center missions. But even if CAG bring back all missions that were in-game and at distribution centers before server meshing, that's still not a whole lot. So what other missions could CAG introduce to distribution centers? Well, I see two possible missions that could be added without much work. First would be a hauling chain within the distribution center itself. I really like the delivery missions, and expanding this to full hauling could really be fun, and give vehicles like the CSV SM something to do. It could be even more interesting if you were provided one of these vehicles by the missions. This would create a very interesting intro mission for new players. In general, I think distribution centers should have some content tailored for new players. My idea of a new player experience is that you complete the tutorial, which takes you out of the city, and then you're pointed to the next location, where you can stay and complete missions to earn credits and learn the game mechanics. Moving on to the other mission type that can be added easily, and that's repair missions. I like how they worked in Pyro, and I think distribution centers would be a perfect place to put them in Stanton, especially with the pipe patching mechanic added with the Onyx facilities. Again, it would be a good intro mission for new players. Basically, we need you to patch up some pipes in the basement. You will need a multi-tool and some RMC canisters. You can bring those or get them from the maintenance workshop at the distribution center. Of course, you can scale this to however much you want, add more pipes, some traversal puzzles, or replacing fuses to restart various components. Before we dive into what new content could be added to distribution centers, I would like to take a small detour and explain why we want to funnel people to distribution centers and other permanent locations in general, and try to keep them there with content. The universe of Star Citizen is pretty big as it is, and it will only get bigger. But the number of locations a player can visit is finite, and every location requires an artist to create the assets and then to assemble them into a place that players can visit. So if players have no reason to stay in one place for a long time, they will eventually run out of places to go. The less they stay in one place, the faster they run out. So it makes sense to add content to locations that encourages players to stay and explore all options. And then, why do we want to have many introductory missions for new players? Well, we need to teach these players how to play the game and how the different mechanics work. And we can use this to give them the skills they will use in sandbox activities or just general open play. More importantly, when the game shows them these locations and lets them discover what can be found there, they will know where to look for it in the future. For example, after loot was introduced to the game, many people realized that after a wipe, they can go to any mining or research outpost to get some free multi-tools and food. Something that could be done while doing a basic delivery mission. In short, there should be some introductory content that gives new and returning players information and skills diegetically in the content they play. Now, moving on to new content that could be added to distribution centers that would require some effort. I would like to see different specializations of distribution centers. For example, a mining one that has a refinery that can process your ore and maybe has a cave where you can mine. One of the missions it could offer is that they let you into the cave and you have to collect a number of gems. Maybe as you gain reputation, they allow you to mine there for free. On the other side of the spectrum, you could have a military or mercenary focused distribution centers, which could have many weapon and gear shops and facilities for turning in captured bounties. You can extend this to pretty much every faction and whatever gameplay they focus on, which is what would make distribution centers an interesting place to go and somewhere you might want to return, and a place to interact with the guilds that are supposed to be a part of the 1.0 release. Now, there is this trend in Star Citizen where locations and content in general lack depth, and more importantly support and development post-launch. For example, many people are reporting issues with contested zones and executive hangars, and nothing is being done and no new content is planned for them. Same with the Stormbreaker facilities. They have issues, but more importantly, after you complete it, there is no reason to do it again, especially after you no longer need the loot to trade with Wicklow. Distribution centers are just an early example of this, and I hope that CIG come back to a lot of content and locations next year and give them a second pass with more depth. And more importantly, I hope all the old missions come back eventually. And with that being said, that's all for today. What do you think? How can CIG save distribution centers? What missions would you like to see in the future? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. Also, there is a new option that might be available to some of you to highlight the video. I actually don't have this option yet because it's region locked, so I can't tell you what it looks like or what it does. But YouTube tells me that it's supposed to make the video do better. So if you can, try clicking on it and see what happens. And of course, here's a shout out to my amazing patrons and channel members for their support of the channel and everything else I do. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.